Good morning, everyone. Benita Fay with Nevada School of Professional Studies with your Yes, Your Employment Search. Some of you asked clarifying questions about what I meant when I said you have to impress the computer and how to update your resume. So I wanted to focus on that today. First thing, make sure that your name is bolded and that it is the largest thing on your resume. You don't want employers or resume screening apps having to search for your name, so make sure it stands out. Also, you do not need to put a numerical address. No one's going to write you a letter. It is okay to put city and state and zip code. Las Vegas, Nevada, 89119, for example. Also, make sure you include a valid phone number and also your email address. Employers communicate by email address 90% of the time. So make sure you have a professional email address and that your voicemail is also professional. Next, let's also talk about these resume screening apps. What do they look for in a resume? The employer inputs the job descriptions and they put in keywords that they're searching for on someone's resume. Most of the times, these are skills that are required and needed to successfully do the job. For example, as an employer, I might put in communication, problem solving, leadership or management, right? And so the computer will look for those words and scan the hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands during this current pandemic of resumes for those key words and will only put those with those words on it in front of me as an employer, saving me time and money without having to manually look through the resumes. So you have to impress the resume screening app, which is the computer, if you want to get in front of an employer. So you want to make sure that you pull out transitional skills. These are highly sought after by employers because most of them feel that they can train you to do the job, but what they have difficulties training people on is communication, problem solving, listening, right? Those higher level skills that are required at jobs. And so make sure you scan the job description, read it thoroughly, and see what words are repetitive. Is it team building? Is it problem solving? Is it customer resolution? Is it solution focused? Look for those words. Is it Microsoft Office? Make sure you mention that if that's in the job description, because if you don't update your resume to say that you have that skill and highlight it, but you mention a job that you did, let's say 10 years ago, but you say that you're proficient in Microsoft Office, the computer's not going to believe you, and neither am I as the employer. Because you said you had that skill 10 years ago, we are now on Microsoft Office 10. So, did you learn that skill when Microsoft first came out? And also, speaking of Microsoft, you want to make sure that you don't use any fancy fonts on your resume. A lot of employers are still using Windows 7, so you may have Windows 10 because you just purchased this brand new laptop or computer to work from home. Make sure you use Times New Roman or Calibri. No script. Don't highlight. Don't use fancy fonts because Windows 7 may not recognize it from Windows 10, and so the computer is going to do what it thinks it should do, which is often put a big space. So your resume comes out looking pretty funny once it's printed because the computer is going to do what it thinks it should do because it doesn't know how to interpret the fancy font or the little symbols that you may put on your resume. So make sure it is basic fonts. And use size 12. Nothing is worse than trying to read a resume that is in an 8 font because you're trying to squeeze everything on it. And again, make sure you only go back 10 years on your resume. Anything older than 10 years is pretty much irrelevant most of the time. And I say most of the time, and I'll tell you the exception. But it's irrelevant because nobody's doing business the same way they did 10 years ago. The only way that I could see that being relevant is like, let's say if you are a therapist and you want to say that you worked as a clinical supervisor 10 years ago, and it's conducive and in alignment with the position that you're going for now, I would go back more than 10 years if I could fit it onto one page. Or it's okay to use 2 pages if it is all relevant. For example, my resume is 2 pages long because I have an extensive career in human services. So I use a 2-page resume to show growth in my industry. That's when you use a 2-page resume. That is the perfect time. Excuse me. My allergies are horrible. Also, if you are a military or a federal employee, please tailor your resume to civilian resume. That's crucial. I received a resume from somebody who was a federal employee, and it was literally 15 pages long. 15 pages. I just set it aside. There's no way I have time to read 15 pages. So make sure you tailor your resume to civilian style. Let's talk about the styles of resume. You could use a chronological, which lists your jobs in order by year and month. Functional is where you highlight your skills, or you could use a blend. I tend to use a blend. I highlight my skills at the top of my resume, and at the bottom, that's where it is chronological. The other thing that you want to do for your resume is make sure that your spacing is even and that you edit it. Make sure there are no misspelled words. Explain any gaps that are on there. And make sure you put a second set of eyes. I tend not to use resumes that are created on Word because they have a lot of fancy swirls and loops and they want you to put your picture. A plain black and white resume is more conducive to submitting your resume. Anytime someone tells you to submit a resume online, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a resume screening app. So you want a clean black and white resume. Not with the fancy colors, not with your name bolded going down the side. Just a simple format. Always works best. I always tell people, they say, Benita, I've applied for hundreds and hundreds of jobs and no one has called me back. It's your resume. All the time, it's your resume. The computer is not recognizing your resume as being someone that should be interviewed. So it's important that you impress that computer first so that you get in front of a person so that you can better explain your skills and how you fit into that company. In closing, I want to say make sure you take advantage of resume building apps such as employeenvy.gov. You can go on the website or you can download the app for free, plug in your jobs, and you can select chronological or a functional resume and it will build it for you. Also, there are other resume apps that you can use on Monster and Indeed that also help you to build a resume. But most importantly, remember, your job in 2020 and during this pandemic is to impress that computer first so that you can get in front of the employer. Utilize this time wisely that we have during this pandemic to make sure that you stand out above the rest. Here at Nevada School of Professional Studies, we wish you all the best. We are in this together. Feel free to visit our website for community resources such as food banks, housing assistance, domestic violence, veterans resources, and things like that. www.nv, like Nevada, School of Professional Studies.org. And this is your Yes Moment, sponsored by Nevada School of Professional Studies. Have a great day.